Don't be scared now. We live. So we're already laughing. We just started. So this is microphone's already falling. Ain't that something? So
Mm-mm.
this is our first and already technical difficulties
It's
attempt
okay.
at a live stream together with myself, Adam Coleman, and Tamika Hamilton. Tamika, while I'm trying to adjust this, you want to introduce yourself. Who exactly are you? Like we don't know.
Oh, oh gosh. I don't know. I'm just stop.
Last
I
time I saw it, you were was it a Republican strategist?
shut up. Just leave me alone. I hello. I like so yes, my so Tamika Hamilton, I'm just a mom, but I did this crazy thing. I ran for Congress, 2 cycles, and I'm a Republican, So that was like a unicorn moment for me. Uh, I'm in the military. Been in the military 22 years. I raised almost $2 million on my own running for office, and we almost won. We lost, but we lost by 5%. So, which is crazy out here in California. But I think I represent a majority of Republicans or just people, voters in general, where they just want normalcy. So I put myself out there. We did a really crazy thing, and we helped other candidates get elected. And now I'm doing commentary, consulting, and helping people, especially women, know how to run for office. So, and then I'm Adam's friend, and I don't know why, but I'm Adam's friend. So
Twitter is why. Uh,
Twitter is no, it's X. It's X.
X. I'm sorry. It'll
I know.
always be Twitter to me.
I know. When I say my mama named Clay, I'm gonna call him Clay.
so yeah, I'm Adam Coleman. I'm a writer, so on and so forth.
Yeah, we're right.
Um, but here's the thing. She's a Republican, but I am not. I'm an independent, but I'm open to voting for either or. So like my stance on political parties is that I think we should have, as best as possible, two competent political parties that are trying to vote, trying to gain the vote of every American.
Yeah.
And my curiosity, and we talk about this almost on a daily, about things that the Republicans are doing that seems counterintuitive or like a complete misstep, or they're just not doing at all, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hurting them. And I think that for me, even though I'm not a Republican, I would like to see the Republicans not make these same mistakes over and over and over, just as I would like the Democrats to stop making the same mistakes over and over.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, before we started doing this, we were asking, why do Republicans keep losing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of many areas is that um, people say they're corrupt, and there's corrupt elements. Sure, there's absolutely corrupt elements. We could talk about that, but like for me, I think that while I'm not trying to be an ageist, I think that there's something different as far as strategy goes, depending on the average age of the group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, I'm not that old, but like I understand as you get older, it's harder to change. The
Yeah.
things that worked, you just kind of keep doing over and over. And so, like,
Yeah.
I've been in Republican circles, you've been in Republican circles, and I'm going to be 40 this year, and I know for
Same.
sure I'm the youngest person in these circles, and
Yeah.
most of the people got gray hair, and I don't, and that doesn't bode well for the future of the Republican Party. Just on a side note, if you have people who are, let's say, less than two handfuls years away from passing,
Yeah.
what's the next generation of Republicans going to look like? So, um, no, what were you going to say?
It's like so many things though. It's like if let's start from the beginning. Like you know, why do they like? There's so many reasons why they lose, and I think the first thing that I noticed when I got in the game is just how, and we talked about this before. It's like what you see on TV or what you learned in school is just not what's. It's not what it really is once you start peeling back layers, you know? And I think that a lot of regular people like myself, we don't know how easy it is to get into the game if you just, when I say easy, not that it's like everything is easy, but you don't need a
Mhm.
degree. You don't need to know everybody. You don't need to own a business. You don't need $1 million. You need grit, you know? And I think that that's like, I think that the way running for office or people getting into the game, they see it as like this almost celebrity unattainable thing.
Right.
And it's like, no, it's not. I started with like no money. And I was like, I care about my community. I care about people. And so let's go, right? And in my situation isn't going to be the same for everyone else, you know, because I had a really great team. I I learned as I go, you know, I have some leadership structure from being in the Air Force for so long. And but at the end of the day, I did not see it as this thing where it couldn't be achieved because I was just because I don't see those people as celebrities. I see them as regular people.
Mhm.
And I can be in that room. You know, I can be in that room. And I think that every American should see themselves in that space and know that they can do it. And you know, anyway, I don't it's just it's I'm looking at the comments too. Here are all here are all the ways we can keep transparency. Oh gosh. But yeah, so I just think that I think that at the end of the day, like the beginning is I always tell people is like don't ever feel like you don't deserve to be in that space. Um, but it's really something that from afar it can be really hard to like imagine yourself there because it does
Well,
take a lot.
that's yeah. I mean, that's from the aspect of running for public office and that. But my question is more so like just from the outside looking in. You
Mhm.
know, what are they doing that is wrong? And I don't even necessarily think like, oh, just be like the Democrats and that's how you win. Because I don't think Democrats win in everything either. Um, so we're just looking at what are the faults of the Republican Party? What are they doing wrong? So if if we're, it sounds like you're talking about these older people who are staying within the party, and it's not just so people understand like it's deeper than just the candidates, right?
Yeah,
You have the committees. So there's a lot of political nonsense that happens behind the scenes on a
yeah,
local level that helps to decide whether a campaign struggles, succeeds, fails.
yeah.
You know, Tamika had to deal with uh, at the very beginning because she's a newcomer, she's not part of the inner circle, where they're trying to basically not support her, or in some cases, try to get her to
Hmm.
fail until she kind of proved them wrong. So there are other political elements that kind of come into that, but beyond that, like why
They don't
aren't
want.
yeah, go ahead.
They don't care about people. It's I mean they don't care about the average person, and and because we are so comfortable as Americans. It's the pushback is like the pushback is very minimal, right? It's like
Mhm.
event based or a situation based or like some kind of phenomenon based where we do a little pushback and they'll answer us by changing some things or whatever, or act like they're going to make some changes in government for because people are speaking out. But like they don't care about people. They're not thinking about you and I. They say they do when they do these cute little ads. They're not trying to relate. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Like how many we do we have? Like five. The Republican Party, the minorities that represent the Republican Party is very minimal. You
Mhm.
know, like that doesn't represent America. I don't want to. People can argue over representation or whatever, you know, or people being overrepresented on the Democrat side, but we don't care about people. not on the level that we say we do. Like, for example, you and I talk about like women when we're talking about abortion or whatever. It's like, okay, we want women to keep their babies, but we are not doing all that we can to make sure they have the resources to talk in a way that endears for women to feel like they have a voice in the Republican Party that speaks for them. And that's why they're gravitating towards Democrats. And they're going to fight hard to make sure Democrat stays in office or have the political capital, because we don't have enduring messaging towards women when it comes to abortion. Like, it's just, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They just do not overall care about people. And it's all these scores, and it's so petty, and it's like, and they're going to lose so much ground this cycle if people don't start asking for more from the Republican Party, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the messaging, I think, is right up there. So the way I've kind of assessed it is that Republicans have good ideas, terrible messaging,
and terrible messengers.
and terrible messengers. Well, that's why the message is bad, right? Because the messengers are terrible at relaying it.
Yeah, terrible
so they have terrible messengers and resulting in terrible messaging. One of the vibes that I tend to get when listening to whether it's just like regular Republicans talk is that they don't believe that they should sell their ideas, right? Like, it's just good.
Yeah.
And so they're just supposed to buy it. And I'm like, no, that's not how people work.
No,
right?
No.
Like, politics is about selling your points. Politics is about convincing people, right? Like, you don't just, there's a reason why people want to buy BMWs. It's not because they just happen to exist. It's that they spend decades crafting this image about a BMW and why you should buy it, right? Now, doesn't mean that a BMW is the greatest car of all time, right? It's all a perception. It's what you think it is. But when you go to Germany, for example, the taxis have Mercedes-Benz E-Class, right? So, like, if the taxis over there have a Mercedes-Benz, is it really that special? I mean, it's a nice car, but is it that special? It's a perception thing, right? So, as Americans, we have a higher perception of it. Why? Because we've been sold it. It's marketing, right? And when you're a candidate, you have to market yourself. When you're someone who is in public office and you're trying to get something to pass through, you have to convince people, right? You have to, and in order to convince people, you have to meet them where they are. And I think that you have to also kind of craft your message depending on who the audience is. So as much as I hear people lament, like, oh, they're just saying this because it appeals to this demographic of people, whether it be minorities, young people, women, whatever. And it's like, well, that's actually the smart thing to do, right? Because they're meeting them where they are. Sometimes
but Adam, they don't want to. You say that and you're pandering. You're pandering if you do that. Okay, you're pandering and you're wrong. And no one cares about these subgroups. Nobody cares about these voting blocks. We just want the Constitution. The funny thing is that they don't realize that that's how you win. Is that you connect with the subgroups. That's how you build coalitions. And like, even right now, like, the Democrats are finding a hard time getting the coalitions to get behind Joe Biden, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is like the prime time for Republicans to rise to the occasion and, and part to those groups that, would normally be behind Democrats and say, like, look, they don't have answers. They haven't done this. Boom, 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 boom. They just said some things, and now 4 years later, are you satisfied? Like, there's so many things that could happen, but they don't. When you start talking about that, especially when you start talking about like connecting with minority groups, and I don't know, maybe it's Twitter because Twitter is like super miserable, but like the first thing that they say is like, you're pandering. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm just talking about what's important to this community of people. It's like, so no.
Yeah, I mean, can you pander and it's insulting? Absolutely. Like, I'm not advocating that Republicans should do some campaign ad sitting down and eating fried chicken with black people. Because that
That
would be
was
kind
a
of
good
weird.
ad. No,
You
no,
see, see, this is where we disagree.
no. That was a good look, Adam, brother Adam. No, you gotta no. That was a good ad. That was like so like endearing and it was like and then the father was so engaged and you could tell that regardless if it was scripted or not, that dad really he's a really good dad and they were having a conversation no matter how you okay I hear what you're saying but you got to think about the optics okay
Well,
like
that's what I'm saying. The optics of
optics
fried chicken, like,
it was
because I hear what you're saying. Like, in general, it's not a bad thing, right?
no.
If they, let's say, for example, they weren't eating food and he's just sitting down and just talking to black
Yes
people, like, I
and it
wouldn't
was like
care.
and look how beautiful that video okay just act like for a second that it's not Joe Biden okay
Mhm.
just like the video itself was beautiful it was beautifully done and I was like it was fried chicken I mean it wasn't hot sauce right but
But
I just
it's
I don't know I don't want you to misunderstand me I'm just thinking it's all about the thoughtfulness and yes, we are in election season, and he's going to, and as any candidate, you're going to show if you won or if you're in the position, you're going to show what your policies, how it affected
Mhm.
Americans, and so that's what he did. He was showing the policies that affected this family, right? But okay, people can argue that fried chicken, but they were trying to make these connections, and we don't know if that family was like, "Let's get this fried chicken out." Like we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and that you could be absolutely right. They could have been like, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" And they said, "Popeyes, motherfucker." Like, you don't know. We have no idea. I'm just saying, as someone who's just scrolling through Twitter and I see
I hate
Joe
Twitter.
Biden, the same guy who said you ain't black, I always got that in the back of my head, and he's sitting down with a
He
black
called us. He
family.
called us super predators. Let's just make. The man has had a long history. He's had a long history of calling us terrible names. So I mean, I've yeah. I mean, these are our choices. But he's called
Yeah.
us super predators. He didn't want to. He was all down for segregation. I mean, that man. But they're gonna stand beside him. They're gonna stand beside him. So.
Listen, the days of the racial jungle are over.
No, it's not. The Republicans are trying to bring it back.
They're trying to bring it back. Well, speaking of optics, we were just talking about this today. It is not a good. I don't. Granted, I don't know everything behind this story, but see, the thing about optics is that they're quick, right? It's whatever hits your senses, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not. Most people are low information consumers, right? So
Yeah.
whether they just see a headline, they see a clip somewhere, and you have to assume that most people are not going to dig deeper than that. So when you see a headline that says a KKK member is running for office in the Republican Party, it doesn't look good. Now, granted, I guess you theoretically can't stop someone from running for office.
You can't. You can't.
So, but I'm just saying,
sorry,
like,
I'm not laughing. Because we talking. I'm not laughing. It's just look, y'all don't understand. We've been through so much. It's like what else? It's like you throw in the kitchen sink. It's like the last thing that we need is a KKK, and then here goes Black Democrats. Tamika, I see you over there riding for the Republican Party. They got KKK members. Like you can't. It's like how do you? And then I think I was reading some of it, and he was like, he wasn't like a member. He was like an honorary member or something like that. And I was like, it's just as like
it
there's no.
doesn't make it any better.
And then I don't know if because AI is getting so good, so I don't know if this is real. But there was like a picture of him in front of a burning cross, and I was like, "What is?" it's just. But you know what's so bad? You know what is even worse is that given all of Michigan's problems, you know, they have a lot of the Michigan GOP has a ton of problems, and I don't know if they put out a statement yet. Let me look. Let me see if they put out a statement yet. They're not the GOP. The GOP does not say anything when this stuff happens. I mean, I've told you some of the crazy things that have happened to me as, you know, running, and they never say anything. Like they think like they're the royal family. Don't complain, don't explain. It's like, no, you have to explain this stuff. You have to say this is not who we are. But they don't say anything. Okay, so 2 hours. Oh my gosh, 2 hours ago, Michigan Republican Party in disarray.
Oh man.
Disarray. Oh my gosh, this is too funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's just. But yeah, so no, I don't see any statements on. You know, I could be wrong, but they'll say like that's not us. That's not the point. It's like optics, right? It's not. Yes, there are so many good Republicans out there. I know them. They're my friends. And we're talking about in the game, right?
Right.
And then, but the loudest, most obnoxious, just wrong people have the mic, and I'm not saying like again, okay, because you know that First Amendment, Tamika. It's no. It's not about people not being able to voice their opinions. It's more about we need to win some races. And we need to bring balance back to our country, or we're gonna have the wrong people in power. We could potentially have Biden for the next 4 years, right? And then have another Democrat president right after that. I don't know who else could run in after Biden. I don't think that DeSantis is gonna come back after. I don't think so. I wouldn't even want him to do that. So we're gonna have 16. Can you imagine 16 years of a Democrat president?
I hear what you're saying.
That's where we're at.
Here, but here's also the thing.
What?
We like to go back and forth as a nation, right? As far as presidencies go, we go back and forth. We go from Republican, Democrat for various reasons. So
it's not the same. It's not the same now.
I'm just saying. I
hear what you're saying on the swings. I get all of that.
Yeah.
But we're not. This is a different. This country is so different now, and Republicans are. I feel like sometimes the Republican leadership. Hold on. Let me say that. I feel like sometimes because you can't because it's not all of them, right?
Right.
So I want to be careful in saying this. The way that things are being and this is not the way that things are going, I don't see a Republican getting another presidential nomination. I don't see the American people are going more either tuning out or going more left. The women are going left. Like that's documented, right? Like the stats say that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't see it. And then if Gavin Newsom runs for president after this, he's gonna win. And I don't think people understand like that's a big possibility. So I don't know. That's why.
I mean, a lot of people are like, how in the hell could Gavin Newsom win the presidency?
What? How? Have you seen him?
We're going to go back to the superficial part, right? He's not a bad looking guy, and he seems like a smooth talker. But I think the biggest reason why he would win, or he could possibly win, I really hope he wouldn't win, is that most people don't live in California and have fully seen what he has done. And so they're going to, obviously we talk about, you try and go after people's records and stuff like that, but it only works so much, right? What does the superficial voter think? What's the message surrounding Gavin Newsom if he was to run for president? It comes down to that. It comes down to the person who is trying to kind of keep up with all these candidates who are running for office and only sees a clip or two on, NBC News. And it seems like, Gavin seems like a nice guy, whatever it might be. And
Yeah.
so we have to, as much as like we're in the political game, we talk about like, oh, this thing happened. But me and you also recognize like that's something that's really small that like 99% of people won't even see or hear about.
Well,
yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Gavin Newsom is very compelling.
Mm-hmm.
He sees people. He goes out of his way to see people, and this is where Republican when I get on, because X and all platforms are like so different. You can't. I don't. What I see based on my work on the ground, and I'm saying work on the ground, like just to give whoever's listening, it's like I'm in a district where there was only 20% ish of Republicans, registered Republicans. I didn't change my stances. I didn't change who I was. I'm just pro-life, all the things, military family. My husband's a cop. Like I stayed myself, right? I just want to do the work, mind my business. That's not the current culture of Republicans right now. They're really salacious, and I'm just not that woman. But being a woman of faith on the ground, when you're here, it's even though things aren't great. Obviously, we got our issues, just like every state has their issues. Gavin Newsom, is a ground guy, and he'll get on your level and he'll talk now. And I'm making the case for Gavin Newsom in the sense of trying to show people why he would be president, because he can raise the money. He's good looking. His wife is highly educated, an artisan. She's very much embedded into the state, and not just like remember when they were talking so much crap about Casey DeSantis, right? And just saying all those horrible things about her helping DeSantis. Well, helping her husband. Jenny Newsom is like turbo of what Casey DeSantis is. Like she's on steroids, and not in a negative way. She's into the program. She just so that it's hard when it will be hard for Republicans to overcome that because they're not in the community, and they're not in any community really. They're not talking to people on their level and talking about the things that matter to them. They're going off of like the latest, like back to like the beginning of our conversation, like they're not connecting. And so that's why even with Gavin Newsom's faults, and then he's also a blue dog Democrat, which is also what Trump is. Trump is a blue dog Democrat. He just could not be able to take the nomination away from. If there was no Hillary Clinton, I think that Trump would have ran as a Democrat. If there was no Hillary Clinton, no roadblocks on the Democratic side, he would have ran as a Democrat. That's my opinion. And that's why him and Gavin Newsom they get along. They're like friends. They're buddies. They say nice things about each other. So because they both relate, both gazillionaires, and they have the same alpha vibe or whatever. But it just all goes back to that connection. And I don't see any Republican making that case right now. Because you would have, in order for you to run for president, that groundwork has to already be seated now. And so think about the people that ran for president on the Republican side. Currently, Nikki Haley can't beat Gavin Newsom. Vivek can't beat Gavin Newsom. Who else? Like all those other old dudes. Lord forgive me, they're not. But they were respectfully, they're older, so, and they weren't compelling enough to get enough attention. I just, and then DeSantis doesn't have the same charisma. And I mean, I could go on and on. I just want people to see, I want people to be practical, right? In their, and understand like it's levels to this. So
well, and also something to keep in mind. So like a pet peeve of mine is when people look at the moment, who the people, I say like candidates, but like who are the names now? People look at the names now and they say they pretend like the names now are the names for the next 2 decades or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be like for example, they're like, oh, we get Trump for 8 years and we get DeSantis for 8 years. Like, no, that's not how things work. Like,
Oh my
for
God.
all you know, half these people that we talk about are no longer relevant, right?
No.
There's another batch of people who will pop up. And I remember, for example, years ago, I don't know if you remember this, Chris Christie, people were saying Chris Christie needs to run for office. He should run for president. And there was actually a push for it, and he didn't run, right? And I think he presumed that his moment will continue, and he didn't attempt to run. When he did attempt to run, I believe that was, didn't he attempt to run when Trump ran in 2016?
Let me see.
I don't know. Remember.
I can't remember either.
I can't remember which year it was, but needless to say, like, his turn had disappeared, right? His momentum was gone. Other people came up in the field. So, like, you look at all these, look at Marco Rubio.
You're right. He did. Yeah, people don't understand timing. And that's like when, like, for example, this is not an argument, but something I put out there a while ago in, my friend group was that, and this is what I predict because these Twitter people are so predictable sometimes. God forgive them. But okay, so so Biden does his 4 years, then it's the next, or if God forbid, if anything, nothing happens to him, hopefully. But because I'm not that kind of person. Like people are like, oh, I hope he dies. It's like, please stop. Biden does his 8 years, and then Gavin Newsom comes. I don't think that DeSantis has the juice. Democrats have this really cool ability to reinvent themselves, and to and stay connected and stay involved and stay raising money. Like Gavin Newsom probably has, I don't know, he spent like almost $70 million fighting a recall. Like the guy can raise money, right? I don't know if DeSantis has the same. I don't think DeSantis has the same juice to do it. And then his performance running against Trump wasn't, compelling to the people that he needed in order to get over the hump to beat Trump. So it's like, it's hard for me. Like, you can't beat Trump. How can you beat DeSantis? I mean, how can you beat Gavin Newsom? Because they're like the same. They're just.
Well, I'll say this. Like, so it's an unfair thing because Trump is a political anomaly, right?
Yeah. So, he's like Obama. They're special.
Yeah. Like they are naturally charismatic, and most politicians who run for presidency aren't, right?
Yeah.
They're fine, right? They're not necessarily charismatic. You're like, all right, sounds good. I'll vote for them. But they're a political anomaly. So when you try to measure, like, it becomes like this unfair thing to add to the political equation of charisma. Okay. And it's like, most of these people aren't charismatic.
Okay, well, and I don't believe we should be, and I agree with you. I don't believe we should be measuring, right? But so I need to I did not quite answer the question or the thought. It was like, okay, this is what I think would happen. This is what I predict, so maybe like timestamp this. 2016, Chris Christie, I just looked it up. Chris Christie didn't run in 2016.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But it was greatly forgettable because I was like, it was like Trump all day. Like, what are you talking about? Somebody else was there. So, but we got to go back to that because that was like a time. That was like a time. But okay, so let's go fast forward. It's Gavin Newsom, and then they try to push DeSantis. I think, if anything, if we're thinking about who's current right now, it would be Byron Donalds. I think it should be Byron Donalds because Byron Donalds has the same like energy to vibe with Gavin Newsom and go back and forth with Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom knows his numbers and he's like, he once he's on something, he's on it. And I just don't, and he just has, I think that Byron Donalds has that charisma. But the problem with Republicans is that they will do to DeSantis, they will do to Byron Donalds what they did to DeSantis. It's DeSantis' turn. It's his turn. And it's like, going back to what you said earlier, it's about timing, right?
Right.
And the timing was now. Should have been now. But, Trump got to pay lawyer fees. So, there's
Yeah, I mean, there is that, and actually, Byron Donalds is a good guess for the future.
yeah.
But it just goes back to, you have no idea which name will pop up out of nowhere, right?
The,
And
the
and
it's only
and
gonna
what we
be
talk about.
it's only gonna be who can raise the money. You have to be like, it's all about who can raise the money. And I know that sounds really sad, but if 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 Republicans ran like how Democrats run, we would I mean, there would be balance in this country. Democrats run like they're losing every single time. Biden has like over $100 million in the bank right now. He's sitting on cash. We do not have that. We don't even have that in the RNC. Like, I don't even think Trump. Let me go see Trump. Let me see how much Trump has. I don't even think Trump has 100. I don't even think he has 50 million. He's not. I'm gonna check the report. I'm gonna see.
Yeah,
So it's just
I mean, you could be right.
you have to, because you'll have the people like, oh my gosh, it shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't be, but the money is for buying ads, making phone calls, walkers. It's not about money to manipulate per se. It's like to reach the voters, because people aren't paying attention, right? And you need to have money to get the crossover votes and reach out to them, because then if we go all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, it's about making that connection. And if you're trying to get people that haven't voted to vote for you, or that would vote for that, because they'll always go back to like, who connected with me,
Right.
And hold on, let me go. And currently, as of the end of going back to, so Trump has 30 million on hand, cash on hand. That's on one, because there's that's his uh candidate, how much money he has as a candidate. But then they have like PACs, and so
Right.
I don't know.
It's
I
a
don't
little
know
bit different.
Yeah,
But obviously, he doesn't have as much as Biden.
no, like not even a little bit. It's like, and the thing about and people don't want to be people. This is a hard, I don't know every. I don't want to get into whole major donor stuff, but it's just hard. The Republicans have not shown. They just haven't shown that they don't have anything showing like worth fighting for. Is like, what are we fighting? Like, they're not giving anything for people to get behind. They just they don't even know how to do pop culture right.
Oh
They,
man.
I mean, they're getting
Well,
clicks and likes, but
I mean, yeah. What exactly are they fighting for?
nothing.
Well, actually, you know what? Because I wanted to bring this up before I lose this thought. As far as why do they keep losing? They keep pushing for the wrong candidates in the wrong areas. So what I mean by that is like, it's not that they chose Bob, and I wish they chose Charles because Charles is a nicer guy. No,
Yeah.
they choose Bob because Bob is of this certain political philosophy, and they like that within the party, right? And they want to get behind it. So whether it's a local committee level or whatever it is that's pushing it forward, they like Bob because Bob is of this political philosophy. So to give a real world example of a philosophy, like let's say someone who is a diehard Trump, MAGA type of candidate, right? Everything that Trump is for, they're check down the list, right? They're for it, and that's fine. That's fine. That type of candidate can work, but it can't work everywhere. And so, if you try to run that candidate in, like, I don't know, Alameda County, it won't work. It just won't work because it is not to say that they will never vote for a Republican, but if they are going to vote for a Republican, they won't vote for that type of Republican, right?
Well, are
Yeah.
you saying that all Republicans aren't the same? Are you saying?
It's a rumor.
It's a rumor.
Yeah.
Are you saying that a MAGA Republican couldn't win in California in some areas? You better stop it right now. Stop it. Everyone
Yeah.
should be America first. You okay? You're right. But the thing about it is, like, it's hard because these people do not want to have those conversations. And then when you start, like, when we talk about, then they start name calling, like Rhino. It's like, no. That is not. All those things are being done to shut down conversations that need to
Right.
be had. But yeah, no, like I am not. And then what a lot of, and maybe we're just talking about Twitter here, but what I see a lot of is like this idea that everyone should be the same. And if you're not like me, if you're not this kind of Republican, if you're not saying the buzzwords, somehow that means you're not authentic. But I feel like that's just a hijack to, you know, blackmail people into just these unnecessary purity tests that just turn them into commentators and, and just they're basically raising money off the base to please them, but not their communities that are not thinking about any of that stuff. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of people that in your community are on Twitter. Everybody ain't on Twitter. Like,
Right.
they're just not. But it's hard because you're the loudest voices would make you think that everyone is on Twitter. Just like,
Right. And they think that winning the campaign means winning the online campaign, and it doesn't, especially for like local elections.
I'm like the
So
most boring person on social media. I suck. Like, I'm so bad. Like, I don't. And someone could argue, oh, Tamika, you just don't know how to use X. I just don't care. I just don't care. I mean, okay, to an extent, I've cared because I'm like, I want people to know that it's possible to win these hard areas if you just get out of the box thinking or whatever. Hold on, I didn't do the box right. But but yeah, it's hard because X isn't while X is it just doesn't give you that space to talk about that kind of stuff because people don't want to know that people don't care about those things being out there. They just want their way.
yeah.
It's only, but X is miserable. Like, it is so. Yeah. It just pushes misery. There's like no hope. It's like there is hope. There's hope in California. I refuse to be like it's no hope because we prove that there is hope, and there are people there are Democrats that want to vote for Republicans. It just has to be the right Republican,
Right.
and like, and I don't know if I'll ever run again. Maybe my time might be up, but I know that we proved that it's not all this, Democrats are all demons. I hate that. It's just not real. So,
Yeah. So much in the same way that not all Republicans are the same, not all Democrats are the same. There's an important distinction between the progressive wing and whether you want to call them blue dog or moderates. They're
yeah.
not the same. Moderate liberals are not the same.
Yeah.
And so, I think that often happens. Like the most extreme of the political wing gets used as the representation of the entirety of that wing by the
Yeah.
opposition. Um, and and when that happens, even from a political stance, as far as like candidates go, they're like, I could never win them anyways, right? Because don't they all want to meet with kids? It's like, no, that's those specific people, right?
Yeah.
It's not all of them. There are people who are winnable, and
Yeah.
and I go back to like, and this is also part of the problem with. There are a lot of people who've gotten into politics, like in 2016 because of Trump, which is not a bad thing. However,
Yeah.
the issue is that they have no recent political history. And so their entire understanding of politics is a very short time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Where I've been at least paying attention since George W. Bush, right? And I would say I started really getting into it. I want to say maybe almost 15 years ago. This was probably when I started like really, really paying attention, but in my mid-20s. So I have like some political history and understanding. So like you see stuff over and over, you're like, all right, well, I've seen this enough times to know that they all say this. This is bullshit, and not to take this too seriously, and not to expect it to happen because that's what they want you to expect. But I just think that there is a. I was trying to think. Why did I bring that up? The reason I brought that up is I remember years ago the big thing that they would always talk about, and they still talk about it, but people forget that it's a thing. Swing states. Why do you like? We have 50 states. You don't see presidential candidates going to Hawaii to try to win votes. They don't really even go to New York to try to win votes. They go to the swing states. They go to Florida, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. I forget the other ones that are down the list, but they're very key states that they go to. They're called swing states for a reason, because they could go either way. And why is that the case, right? It's probably the same people from the 4 years prior, right? It's because there are people who can vote either way, or there are people who might be interested in voting either way, and they sat out last time around. They had no motivation to go out and vote. So, like, there's so many different dynamics that come into that play. But when people think, in the context of this conversation, when Republicans think that they cannot ever get someone who's voted Democrat before, while at the same time looking at all these people who were former Democrats in the walkaway movement, like, obviously, you're able to get former Democrats, right? There's a reason why people stop voting for the Democrat Party. And I think it's a terrible strategy if you just think that we'll let the Democrats screw up enough times and then we'll just get the residual effect because we're the last one standing. That's not good either. You should still try to win their votes, but like, you can win votes, right? You can win these people over. And there are people who live in areas where there are only Democrats running. And that's it. You cannot vote for a party that doesn't exist there, right? If on the ballot there is no Republican, that's all you can vote for. And then you turn around and you're like, see, that's all they vote for is Democrats. Like,
right. But then also we gotta, and that's where excuse me, let me back up, because that brings up so many thoughts, right? Like, I think about the context. I'm gonna do a Kamala Harris, the context of time. Let me stop. Okay. Well. Oh gosh. That's so
I've never heard that before, by the way. In the context of time.
Oh my gosh.
It's like,
I send it to you. We exist in the context of time. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna send it to you when we get off. Okay.
I've heard it before. I've just never heard anyone outside of Kamala saying that.
I got the. Look, I'm just gonna mess with it. Okay, when you talk about, so we're not so Republicans. Then mind you, then it goes back to the argument of Republicans. Okay, so Republicans are playing in certain areas, right? But then this is where the weeds happen, and people don't want to talk about the weeds. When you get into the weeds, it's like, what's happening? Locally, every state should have a local GOP, right? If you don't, then your state party could help set it up. But if your state party is weak, and a lot of people think that the RNC controls the state party. That's not true. They're all on their own. We're all on our own. The state, the RNC is for federal races and to get the national Republican message out, right? That's their job. Their job is to raise money, support the president, possibly, if they have money, can support other races, and their goal is to get the national message out, right? But then if they can, and if there's money and budget, there, then they can give to state parties that need support because they're, hey, there's a race out here, boom, 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 like, whatever. But a lot of people don't understand that every state is on their own for the most part, and they
Right.
have to raise their own money. And then all this, and every district doesn't have a local GOP. And if you have a local GOP, like there's some areas where I live at that, like, even though the area is diverse, they went straight like MAGA, and they went MAGA in an area where it's diverse and they're not going to win anything, and they don't have the respect of leadership or even the Republicans that are there. And it's hard to like, and people don't want to have those conversations because it's not sexy. It's not sexy to say the thing that they've been riding for 5 years. It doesn't go well in certain places, right? So,
Right.
and then you got to think about how much money goes into trying to win a race. And then people want to argue about that because they're like, oh, well, it shouldn't be that. And it's like, look, move past that. They got to get on the ballot. It costs to get on the ballot in some areas. Like in California, it cost me like 30 grand to get on the ballot because I wanted to add my ballot statement in there, right? So I had to raise that money. I had to make the phone calls. I had to sit down and call people. And then here goes the people that don't understand how this works. Why are you sitting on the phone all day? You're just like, I gotta raise the money. So it's like those are things that candidates are dealing with, and so that's why I start mentoring candidates. That's why I start doing, talks to different groups so that people can understand like what it really takes. And when you start getting the weeds, again, this is not sexy stuff, but
Right.
if people have a better understanding, then they would stop like saying things on social media without having any knowledge. And then here we are 5 years later, and the same 30 people that are at some of these committees, that's it. They're the same people, right? And so the party's not growing. They're not getting any new voters. They're not getting any new, they're not getting young people. They're not getting anybody. So that's why I'm like, who's winning? Biden is going to win. Unless something crazy happens, Biden's going to win. So
Yeah.
yeah.
At the very least, like forget the presidential election for a second.
Yeah.
At the very least, it is not a good sign when the population who are registered voters are closer to death than being alive, right? There's less years left in their life, right? And on the average age of the Republican voters, and even more so, forget the voters for a second, the people who are involved in the party, right? So the people who are involved, like we were saying earlier, when you get in these Republican circles, we're the youngest ones, right?
Yeah.
And likely we're the only Black ones that are there as well. So they're getting younger. I'm sorry, they're getting older.
Yeah. And then they don't want us there either sometimes. So
sometimes, depending on the circle, but
right, always depending on the circle.
Yeah, but they're getting older. They're not appealing to young people, right?
Right.
And it bothers me when I say like you have to appeal to young people. They're like, all young people want is free stuff. It's like, no, they don't.
No, they don't.
Like they want opportunities. Like the vast majority of complaints I see coming from Gen Zs who are adults. Like my son is 18 now, and getting into the world, just getting into the world. The big thing they talk about is college.
Right.
Not necessarily that we need to get rid of the debt. They don't have the debt yet, right? They're looking at the cost, right? So they're not the millennials who've had a decade plus worth of being in the workforce, and they're trying to pay off the debts. We're talking about young people like my son. I mean, he may not be going to college, but if he were to, he's facing, is it worth me going to college to get this degree and come out in $80,000 worth of debt?
Right.
With rapid inflation, and I could never claim some sort of bankruptcy, and it will be there, and I have to pay that, right?
Right. There's no hope. There's no hope. there's no hope, and Republicans are just pouncing on the commentators that we have. Unfortunately, they're not, everything is, they're mad at like some girls dancing. I saw, because I'll be in and out on X. And I'm like, that's what y'all talking about? Y'all talking about young women dancing? Y'all not and then if they're talking about affordability, it's like, again, they're not, everything is doomsday. It's like, yes, it's just, it's not even, we're not even giving these young people, we're not giving young people hope. And
Yeah.
yeah, and the model that worked for the other generations doesn't work for us. Like, you and I talked about it. It's like we were sold what the boomers walked into, retirement, 20 years, get the pension. That doesn't work for us.
Right.
That doesn't work for us. Not, and I found out, I found out late, but at the same time I didn't, because even though at 39 about to be 40, there's things that I can take advantage of and move in, into other, fields. And granted, I've been in the military, but like, you know, there's things that we learned late. But you don't have to stay at a job 20 years. You don't have to, you know, be a slave to that I guess lifestyle that worked for the boomers. So, you know, the Republicans have to bring policies that talk about housing, costs for school, pushing trade school, opportunities that beyond college, right? And
Right.
there's such blue collar work that's honorable too, and they don't talk about that. They're not speaking to blue collar families. It's fighting the elite, and it's like, and everything that they're trying to fight right now are things that just at the end of the day, it's what the things that they're trying to fight now are like cultural things that they don't really have a full grasp on, and they still sound out of touch, right? So it's
Right.
like they're it's but I agree with you. You're right. Like Gen Z is not, they don't have their hands out. They just want opportunity, and they don't
Yeah.
and so it's hard.
Most of the videos that and granted, I'm not on TikTok, but most of the videos I see get shared from TikTok Gen Zs
Hmm.
that are outside of the crazy leftists who are just repeating dogma. Um, they're complaining about cost of living. They're
Yeah,
complaining
yeah,
about, like, I want to live on my own and I can't afford to. Like, the cost is just too high. Um, I'm working X amount of hours and it's still not enough.
right,
I went to school and I did the thing that I was supposed to do, and I've come out and I'm trying, and it doesn't seem to be working. Now, doesn't mean
right,
that it doesn't mean that all of their grievances are spot on. Like,
right.
they're right, there's a problem. Like, most people who are in their 20s have some sort of struggle. I struggle. Lots of us struggle.
Well,
You're not
yeah,
going to leave college and all of a sudden make six figures. Like, that's not going to happen. So you have to work, right? You're going to have to struggle for
right,
many of them. And I think I don't want to say it's normal, but it's not abnormal, right? Many of us struggle in our 20s. But at the same time, I hear the same complaints from people who are our age, right? So, like, my wife and I, we're looking to buy a home, and we have we have income that's coming in that I would say is above the median income, above the average um, American's income, and we are like, I don't know if we can afford to buy a house, right? Because now you got to spend 450,000 to 500,000 to
mm,
find a decent place where we live, a decent house. So home ownership is like a
yeah,
distant future possibility for these people. And like you said, maybe they have to work hard and struggle for the next 5 to 10 years, and they could reach that point in whatever career that they're in. But the key component is hope. They don't even feel hopeful that that is a possibility, right? And are things getting tougher economically? Absolutely.
mm,
Inflation is has really impacted everybody, um, and it's something that we have to somehow mitigate, right?
Yeah.
Inflation's gone up higher than wages have, um, you know, and what do? We just get more squeeze, you know.
Well, and and this is okay. So I'll go back to again hope in California, right? I'll give you an example going on the lines of this economy stuff and our kids and giving them opportunities and giving them hope. So I have a really good friend who pushed for a cosmetology program. And mind you, this is in California. He's a Black Republican. He's on school board. And it took 4 years, I think. But they have a cosmetology program in Sacramento because of his efforts and it was funded.
Mhm.
And and so obviously it's opening up doors for entrepreneurship, getting that trade skill that they wouldn't been able to have otherwise. And they're starting it in high school, right? That's the kind of work and grit that we need in the Republican Party, and that's what we need to discuss. But again, it takes they don't have the right messengers, they don't have the message, um and they it's all become clicks, and I don't, clickbait or whatever, but
Right.
we have to talk about those skills that, we need plumbers, we need locksmith. Let me tell you something. Oh my gosh, we borderline got locked out, but I had a friend that had a key. Like, we need those things, like, because those are not a lot of. There's not enough of those people, to be honest. They're all like it, especially here in the north. So it's like, oh my gosh, like, we need those kinds of skills. We need those people. And I'm not saying that college isn't worth it, but it's being
Mhm.
pushed on the right that certain colleges aren't worth it. But here in Northern California, Republicans are doing good work. I have in my town, in my district, we have 3 Republican mayors. Like, that's unheard of. No one talks about it. I should say unheard
Right.
of, but people don't talk about it. Uh, and we have, Republicans on city council. Democrats are voting for Republican mayors. Let me say that again. Democrats are voting for Republican. They know they're Democrats. Democrats know that they're Republicans, and they're voting for them. And so we're doing something right out here. It just needs to be more of it. And then, again, speaking to the average American, it goes back to just getting back to that being the salt of the earth. And we're just not doing that, we're just not. And
Yeah.
yeah, I could go on and on. I'm sorry.
Not so good. I wanted to highlight what Griffin said here. He thinks that problems the GOP doesn't fully understand why costs have gotten so high. And it's hard to find a solution for something when you don't even understand the problem or what's causing the problem. How do you fix something like that? And I think Griffin's onto something. Either they don't know why costs have gotten so high, or they don't care enough to figure out why costs have gotten so high.
They don't.
Um,
No, they don't. It's both. It's
I was
both.
both. I was trying to be generous. That was one or the
It's
other.
both. It's both. It's both. If they cared about getting votes, they would not be LARPing at every opportunity to, like, fight pop culture, which is
Mhm.
actually needed in order to win elections. You need pop culture. You can't get away. And I'm only purely talking, well, because they do it on Instagram too. But like I said, Twitter's X is the most miserable. So so it's the most miserable. I'm sorry, but it is. And you need both. They can't but you know what? The reason why they probably don't want to get into it is because if they start pulling back some layers, they find out that Republicans are part of the problem of why things have gotten the way they have gotten. So yeah.
Yeah, the the solution to inflation, or even highlighting inflation, has been about just pointing the finger at the opposition party.
Yeah.
Um, I
And I
haven't
hate that.
heard a lot from anybody as to how you fix it or how you can remedy it. Um, I haven't really heard much about that. It's been about it's Biden's fault. It's Biden's fault. Even if it's true, That's all right. So how do you fix it? Right?
Right.
You want I'm saying this so people understand. You're trying to sell to the American public to vote for your Republican candidate.
Exactly.
So if you're saying inflation's the problem, inflation's a problem, Joe Biden is at fault, so then you need to provide, you should vote for Trump, right? Vote for Trump because he'll fix it. How will he fix it? Well, then you just kind of go silent. Like, that's not a strong selling point. You know, you have to be able to say, we will fix it by doing this, right?
Right.
You can say anything, right? We don't know if they'll fix it or not. We can think it might, it may not. But when you don't even provide a policy, and I see so many people not talking policy, they think that policy doesn't mean anything anymore. It actually does mean something. When people finally do pay attention, when people are like, why should I vote for Trump? Right? Why should I vote for this candidate? And you have no policy, and all you're doing is bloviating, or all you're doing is pointing the finger at the other person, that doesn't sell, right? It doesn't really sell the way that people think. You know, now granted, if you make people scared, that's a motivating factor, so you don't have to show some sort of policy.
Right.
But that doesn't always work when you try to make people scared. It really just depends, because the person you're trying to make scared has to be somewhat scared. But
right.
I wanted to highlight what Nicole had to say here. What kind of opportunities can we talk about with kids? So I think you had mentioned before, trade school, whether it be Republican candidates advocating for trade school, advocating for, I'll tell you, actually, here's what would be a really big killer.
What's that?
If Republicans, and you could talk about it on a national level, because we know how it is. Let's say Trump talks about it on a national level, and then everybody just starts to consider it, you know, and statewide and locally.
Okay.
Why are our state schools not being punished for overcharging the students? Like, because we know as a state school, like if Harvard is a private institution, theoretically, Harvard can charge whatever they want, right? But state schools, why are state schools charging competitive prices? And I say competitive, I mean like they're competing not for the consumer, not for the student. They're competing against other private institutions price-wise, so they can all equally gouge the students who attend their schools. Why are they allowed to do that as state publicly funded schools? Why aren't Republicans within these states saying, we want to help college students and we need to do something about price gouging that's happening within these state schools, right? They're getting public money and they're screwing over students within their own states. And that should not be allowed. There is no reason why, for the money that is needed to run this institution, there is no reason why each student coming in here needs to pay $80,000 to go to school, right? There's no reason. That means that, let's say, I don't know, thousands of students are going here, and each one of them are paying $80,000 a pop, and that's what you need to sustain this school that already has all the things that it has to pay. We already know that they don't pay most of their professors aren't tenured, right? We know that they pay, I forgot the term that they use, but they have adjunct professors they pay them absolutely nothing for, right? They pay them on hope that one day they'll be tenured. That's how they pay them, right?
Oh, wow. Now I'm going to have to.
Yeah, you should look that up. They don't, adjunct professors are part-time. You know, they pay them very little. So they have all these adjunct professors because it's cheaper. But then you look, they have all this bloated administration. And this is large state schools across the country. They're all set up the same way. They have a bloated administration. So when people are like, where's this money going? It's going to the people who are sitting in the offices of administration. Doing what? Who knows? So it's not even at the teaching level, right? It's not the professors. It's not like they're oversaturated with highly paid professors. They're not. they're oversaturated with administrators, right? And that's a big chunk of where this money is going.
But Adam, we need all of
Yeah.
these people. What are you talking about?
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
We need all of these people. Now you're hating on the teachers and administrators that keep this place open.
I'm only hating on the administrators. Right? But that's see, to me, that is a selling point. It says the students are getting taken advantage of. We have an opportunity here on a state level to say you cannot charge this amount, right? So they can have price control. They can say, all right, fine, you want money, right? You want 80,000? Well, as the state, we're not giving you this amount. You have to make it up elsewhere, right? And you're not allowed to charge these kids this much. Otherwise, you get no funding from us, right? Why can't they do that? Why can't they do that? Now, I don't know enough about state schools and stuff like that. I don't know if the state government gets money on the back end. I have no idea. But to me, when you have a publicly funded institution, that means that the government has some sort of say. Hey, the government has some sort of say as to what what they're able to do. So why not flex that muscle? To me, I don't understand why they wouldn't do something like that, or why they wouldn't be able to do something like that. But you have to have the motivation to do that, right? And while I do not agree with Joe Biden saying that we should just wipe away all this debt, which will change absolutely nothing, the system will remain in its place. Inflation will get worse. The debt, debt will get worse as far as what the taxpayers have to make up for, and it'll just go back to what it was in a number of years.
Yeah. So now I wrote that down. I'm gonna look into that for California anyway to see what's up, because I never thought about that. That's a good.
Yeah. So these are so they answer Nicole's.
Nicole wants we want you. Nicole and I want you to run for president. You're next.
There's no way I'm running for any office. No way.
You could be my communications director. I don't know, something.
The most I'll ever do is someone behind the scenes.
Okay,
I'll
good.
Be
You could be, yeah. We'll do that.
But as far as like the face, no. I would love to be the person. I don't know if this is a good example, but like how someone was like the mind behind the candidate. Like if somebody was to say something like that.
That's a real. I mean, you think these people are just out there? No. There's like a whole team of people behind the scenes, like whole team of people behind the scenes. So no, that's a real thing. These people aren't just out there just like winging it. Like there's somebody sending emails, there's somebody returning phone calls. It's like a whole thing, and then it's somebody to keep the candidate's mind straight, because it's a stress. It is. I thought having a baby or being in the military or being deployed was rough. No. It was running for office. This is by far the most mentally taxing thing I have ever gone through in my entire life, because you're trying to represent people and I see everybody, so I don't care, Republican, Democrat, I see everybody. So it is so hard, it's so hard, because once you start figuring out like how this thing works, you're just like, oh man, where have I been?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like I can understand like how, and we've talked a number of times, so I understand like the amount of work that goes into it. I still think that you should run for office again. I think this is your turn to win, and I think you can do it. So I mean, unless you're afraid of being the black face of white supremacy, now that there's KKK members running for office.
It's just so wild. It's like, man, I did not know it was this bad. Because it's one thing voting Republican, because like you and I are kind of like in a, like we just chilling, minding our own business. And
right.
I did not realize how there aren't any Black people in the Republican Party representing the party. I just, it's again, and I never, and I was never a Democrat. So, and so that, so my story is like totally different than the stories of the Republicans you see today that are Black, that are doing commentary. You know, they're like
Right.
crossover, right? They're crossovers. And oh, I got Black, or I got red pilled. And I'm like, I just, first of all, I'm a servant in the military, right? Like I'm a servant leader in the military. And I just did my thing as a servant leader trying to run for office. So I just was like, this is wild. Like, y'all are crazy. Like, this is too much. Like, let's just get back to basics. Let's get back to business. And I don't do, and the other thing is that I don't do commentary, you know, like, we've talked about that. I just want to govern. So that was very hard for a lot of people to accept, that I'm not going to just say crazy things or go along with whatever rhetoric that was happening at the time, or narratives. I was like, that doesn't make any sense, or that's just not my vibe.
Right.
And but yeah, I did not know if, and I sometimes I wonder if God had showed me all the things, like, would I be doing this? And I don't think I would. but once I committed, I'm down, you know. But if I had known, I don't know if I would have done it. But there's no, you know, going into the room and you're the only Black person. It's something. It's something.
Yeah. No,
And
I can imagine.
yeah.
I mean, I've not as a candidate, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Actually, the Black thing didn't stick out to me as much as being the youngest. You know.
I think it's both. It's both for me. Well, and I got a when I first came, like my first, again, voting Republican and being in it is two different things. The first time I walked in the room, yes, you see the age, but then you don't see kids. So there was no.
Well, yeah, because everybody is old.
Yeah, everybody's old. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like, where are the young people? Yeah, so where are the young people? And then I remember my first meeting, just like going to a meeting, they're like, you need to bring all the Black people here. And I was just like, what? Like,
where are you hiding them Negroes?
Oh my God. I just remember like this oldest man, he's probably in his 70s, he's pointing his finger at me. It's like, you need to bring more Black people here. And I'm like, what? Like, I still know, I'm still cool with some of those people to this day. But yeah, oh man, you talk about migraines. Woo! Oh man. But yeah, but yeah, I hear you. But I don't actually care about being the only Black person. It's just that I'm the only Black person. It's like, whatever. But it's more like they just have they have this idea of what they think a Black person is, and then they meet Tamika. So it's like,
yes. This.
I'm a Republican, but then I'm a Republican, but I don't know them. I don't know, like, when they like their idea of what they thought I was gonna be. I'm like, nope, sorry, I'm a Republican, but I ain't like that. Like, I'm not like those people over there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, she said everyone thinks Republicans are racist. I used to think it too. There are racists in the Republican Party. It's just that not everybody is. I mean, it's just what it is. Yeah.
Listen, the thing I've written about this, like, when I first started going in Republican circles, I just started seeing, like, oh, you know, they're nice people. A lot of conservatives are really nice. Were there awkward moments? Yes. But I know they mean well. Like, the awkward moments are because their understanding of, like, having a discussion with a Black person is from a complete distance, right? And it's almost like they don't get to have that dialogue, that conversation, so it comes off awkward, right? Because it's just what it is. That's what it is. So, like, I've had these, because especially when you write a book about race, it's a door opener to a conversation, and it's more awkward for them than it is for me, because I know if they're approaching me, and I know what they're trying to say, and I know
Yeah.
that it's coming in good faith. They're just not used to having this dialogue, especially especially like post George Floyd, where they feel like they're not allowed to have that dialogue. So they're even more repressed, and they don't know. So it's like a relief, where it's like, by the way,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
you know. So, but I know it's coming from a good place, and I know that the majority of the conservatives that I've ever met are actually really nice and good people.
Yes.
And I will say that majority of the people who are liberal that I've encountered are nice people as well,
Mhm.
right? And there are many people I have no idea what their political affiliation are. Were nice people and treated me well. Are there condescending leftists who are racist and believe racist tropes? Absolutely,
Yes.
right? Are there condescending people on the right who believe racist tropes? Absolutely. Why? Because they're humans, right? They're flawed. We're all flawed. So no political party is going to be absent of some sort of immorality, right? There are going to be pedophiles on the left and pedophiles on the right. Like you can't prevent these things. There are going to be people who claim to be one thing and live a different life on the other hand. Like
you're saying forbidden things, Adam. You're saying forbidden things. You're not allowed to say these things. Okay? I'm just letting you know that. You're not allowed to say that there's a middle that exists.
I hear you, Nicole. Nicole, as someone who's a former Democrat, I tend to believe the same thing. So you're not
really?
alone. Yeah. But the reason being is like, what's the best way of putting it? The reason I would think that is because I didn't know any Republicans on that level. Like when you grow up in the Northeast, it just feels like everybody's a Democrat. Did I come across some Republicans?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure I have.
I don't know. That's fascinating.
But I just didn't know. Like if I came across them, I didn't know. But I never openly really had political conversations to know that this person isn't even a Republican. It's just you just assume that most of the people you're coming across are Democrats if they vote at all, right?
Yeah.
Or liberal leaning if they if anything. So when someone presents, like for me turning on MSNBC and showing some Republican out of context saying something, like sounds believable because I have no other point of reference. Like
yeah.
I never talked to any Republicans, and every time I turn on the news, they're showing some Republican who's saying something that could be interpreted as racist, or they insinuate that they're racist even though they didn't say anything. Right. So this is the type of like programming and messaging that comes across in the mainstream media about the political right. So like you can't blame me for thinking that way because I wasn't exposed. Just like anything else, you start to change your mind when you start to get exposed to the very thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, well, if this person's not like that, then I wonder, like, are other people like this? And then you're just talking to people and you start realizing like someone is bullshitting me. And that's where like my whole thing about the media, especially left-leaning outlets, are left-leaning, right?
Yeah.
They're not objective observers, right? Sometimes, and some news stories are when it's not political, but when it is political, they have a lean, right? And everybody has a lean. That's ultimately the lesson I learned. But yeah, I mean that's why I would think that they're all racist because I didn't have any point of reference. I didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I never thought that, and that has nothing to do with being a Republican. Has nothing to do with being because like in the middle. Okay, I don't know if this is how I was raised or what, but it's like we just see people for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just move on. And I was never like in the news. I never was in the news like that. I didn't have social media until I was 35. So that's probably another thing. I'm so behind the times. But so I never saw people I just never thought I never looked at a political party and said this one's this way and this one's this way. We just who's the best person for the job, right?
Right.
and who's the, that's it. And if they just so happen to be Republican, okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. And then maybe being in the military for 22 years, we just do the job and we just care about people.
Right.
So I don't know. And I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying like I'm just thinking
No.
culture wise, like what have I been thinking? What have I learned? So yeah, I don't know. I wish there was more conversations about what's happening in the middle, because this extreme stuff is just so exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah.
Well, we're nearing like an hour and a half. Actually, we went a little bit over than we wanted to, but
Oh, this is
um,
like we're not Joe Rogan. No, going like
so tell me about your childhood. No.
oh, right. Well, today.
Yeah.
But
No, but this was a good our first live stream attempt. So it was good conversation, back and forth like we always have. So we're basically just taking our phone calls and turning it into a live stream.
right, a little bit filtered.
Yeah, a little bit filtered. We have way more cursing.
No, I'm not. Hold on, am I cursing? I don't know. Jesus.
No. I'm saying when we talk on the phone, yeah, I curse. I curse way more at least. But no, for Tamika, thank you for doing this with me and giving this a go. Maybe we'll do some more in the near future.
And
For
we
the
love
people,
you, Nicole. We love you,
yes,
Nicole.
thank you. Let's make sure I highlight. See, I'm new to the game. I got to make sure I highlight. Love you too, Nicole. Thank you so much. To Nicole and everybody else who's been rocking with us and involved in the chat. Thank you so much for giving us a listen to here on this Friday night. You could be doing anything else, but you decide to sit in and listen to us complain about Republicans.
But if you have any questions, or if you have some topics, and because I don't know, we just trying to figure out our stride, and maybe we could do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Tamika, you want to do some promo? Anything you want to tell people to check you out at?
No, don't check me. Go and vote. Don't check me, boo. Wasn't that something like don't check me, boo? That was something somewhere. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna bring it back. Please vote. Vote early. Vote now. Do not hold on to your ballots. Please, please, please get your ballots in. Please. And bring like 10 friends with you. So do that. That's what I want you to do.
All right. Well, I do want the promo. Go to my Substack. You can go to www.adambcoleman.com. They'll bring you right to my Substack. Check out articles. I'm going to be posting the live stream soon.
Buy his book, subscribe, buy your book.
Buy the book, subscribe, tell your friends, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. And we'll likely do this again. I had a good time.
Yeah, same. Okay. All right.
Deuces, everybody.
Bye.